Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by City Council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are the representatives of the city's planning department, the city's attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates, and a student representative from Troy Schools. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission, not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting please either be placed in silent mode or turned off. For items that are not public hearings, I will provide an opportunity for public comment. Kathy, you can do the roll call?
I'll do it.
You're going to do it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Edmonds.
Here.
Mr. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Kempen.
Here.
Mr. Krent.
Here.
Mr. Sanzika.
Here.
Mr. Shepke.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Stratt.
Here.
Mr. Tagle.
Here. All right, item number 2 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has had a chance to review it. Any comments, questions, or have a motion? Mr. Stratt.
So moved. Second.
Second by Mr. Krent.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Kempen.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
Item number 3, the minutes from our November 12, 2013 regular meeting. Any comments, questions regarding the minutes, or do I have a motion? Mr. Edmonds?
Move to approve as published.
Mr. Kempen seconds.
Mr. Kempen.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
All right, item number 4. This is for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak on anything that's not on the agenda tonight?
If you,
Come to the microphone, sir, and sign in, please.
I'm surprised that we take this in reverse order. Thank you. My name is Bud Sedera. I own a residence at 5865 Andover Court, which is approximately 250 yards east of you can sign in for me, of the Sunoco pump station that is currently operating at the confluence of Arlen Way, Long Lake Road, or Square Lake Road, and Sussex.
Sir, can I just interrupt you for a minute? This is an item on the agenda. Are you specifically just talking about the pump station?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, you're aware that this is not city property and it's not being done on city property?
Well, no, but that is, we have lots of questions because no one, and I speak for, I'm sure, the majority of the people behind me, no one knows much about what was going on. I did FOIA, and I got the response yesterday, 87 pages, that begins with the July 31st right-of-way permit issued by the city with no engineering interview, and then the probably 100 pages of documents flourished on beginning September 24th when the Plan Commission understood what the heck was happening.
Okay, sir, let me interrupt you one more time.
Go ahead.
Would you mind, when this item gets called, then you can come up and speak on this?
Be my guest, let me know. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyone else in the audience like to speak to items that are not on this agenda? All right. Moving on. Item number 5, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the ZBA report. Mr. Krent?
Yes. At our meeting on November 19th, we had one item come before us. It was a resident that wanted to split a lot. The situation was that by splitting the lot, one of the lots that would be split wouldn't meet our zoning requirements. And since we found nothing unusual with the shape or of the lot itself, nothing that ran with the lot is a hardship. We denied that variance.
That's it? Okay, any questions for Mr. Krent? All right, item number 6, Downtown Development Authority report, Mr. Savanant.
This will be a very brief presentation as there was no meeting in November. Getting ahead of myself.
Okay. Item number 7, Mr. Savanant, the Planning and Zoning report.
Yeah, a heads up to the Planning Commission, look for a report, an article in Cranes in December on the Big Beaver, the developments along Big Beaver. Should be a pretty interesting and informative article on that.
Okay. Any questions for our director? No? All right, moving on. Postponed item number 8. This is a preliminary site plan review, file number SP 985. The proposed Oakland Troy Senior Project, southeast corner of Square Lake and Adams, Section 20, currently zoned R1A, one-family residential district. Mr. Carlisle, are you giving the report?
Yes. Good evening to the Planning Commission and to the public. The item before us tonight is a proposal of a 92-bed senior assisted living facility located at the intersection of Square Lake Road and Adams Road. The property in question is approximately 3.25 acres. The site is zoned R1A, and senior assisted living facilities are a permitted use in the R1A district. This is the third time this item has come before the Planning Commission. At the last meeting, the Planning Commission, as well as the public, discussed the issues of site arrangement, parking, screening from residential properties, the trash enclosure location, as well as site access. We have included a summary of the proposal as we include in your packet. However, I'm only simply going to go over the changes in the set of plans that were provided, and I will be open for any questions from the public or the Planning Commission moving forward. There were a couple significant changes to the plan. The first significant change was the applicant has shifted the building 10 feet to the west. By doing so, the applicant was able to push the building 10 feet further from Sussex and move the building 10 feet closer to Adams. As a result, the building is now providing a setback of 93 feet from Sussex Road, 45 feet from Arlen Way, and 44 feet from the rear property line. In addition, by shifting the building 10 feet to the west, the applicant was also able to insert a sidewalk that wraps around the east end of the building, that connects the back of the building to the front of the building and allows better pedestrian access from the parking lot. In regards to the building location and orientation, the building does meet all area, setback, and height requirements of the R1A district. The second significant change to the proposal was that the applicant has provided additional screening both along Sussex Drive as well as the Square Lake and Arlen Lane intersection. The applicant proposes to screen Sussex with a 3-foot-high berm as well as a mix of shrubs and trees. In addition, these trees are located on the top of the berm to provide additional screening for those properties. Along the Square Lake Arlen Road, Arlen Lane intersection, the applicant proposed to screen this with a mix of trees and shrubs, as well as a berm that wraps around the Arlen intersection. The applicant did look into moving the trash enclosure location. However, at this time, they're not proposing to move the location as proposed. It is located behind the building and is its least visible location from the public right-of-way. In addition, the applicant is proposing to screen the trash enclosure with a masonry material that will match the building design. The site plan has been reviewed by both the city's traffic engineer as well as the engineer, the consultant engineer for the city. The consultant has provided a recommendation that the applicant has agreed to follow. The two most significant recommendations of the traffic engineer's report is that a traffic study be completed for the final site plan, which addresses traffic issues at the AM and peak M hours, as well as extending the center turn lane on Square Lake. Again, the applicant has agreed to these conditions for final site plan approval. So in summary, the use is permitted in the R1A district, and the use does meet all the ordinance requirements, including area, bulk, setback, density, height, landscaping, and parking. Because of these reasons, we do recommend preliminary approval contingent upon the applicant meeting the recommendations of the traffic consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Ben, I just want to, again, reiterate, this is a permitted use by right.
Correct.
Correct. And they do meet all of the zoning ordinance requirements.
They meet all the ordinance requirements and are not seeking a variance for this development.
Thank you. Is a petitioner here?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. Lorenzo Cavalier, 30078 Shaner, Suite 300, Warren, Michigan. I have reviewed Mr. Carlisle's findings from our resubmittal. I'd like to mention and note that we indeed do meet all of the ordinances for this district. We've given full consideration for all of the items, in particular based on the comments at the last meeting, which one was to shift the building to the west or northwest away from the single-family homes. We were able to accomplish that and actually move the building on the site 10 feet to the west. We did add the 3-foot berm along the east property line, which is fully landscaped from the north end to the south end of the east property line with evergreens. In addition, we have chosen to go with LED lighting for the pole lighting. This will require less poles, however, will also give us more control with 0-foot candles at the property lines. We are available to answer any questions that anyone has, and we seek to have a decision made at tonight's meeting if possible.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Mr. Krant.
Everyone, regarding the lighting on the poles, your LED lighting, I've noticed with other LED applications that, yes, when the light levels are measured at the ground, they meet your requirements, but from a distance, a lot of LED fixtures, especially on Southfield Road or Expressway, even though the cutoff is there, you can see from a distance a really bright glare in your eyes. Are these shielded so that you don't see those lights from, let's say, across the street from your property?
They definitely are shielded. At a certain point in the night, those lights will go off and there'll just be some security lighting that's actually fixed to the building, just to give lighting around the building itself and not to light up the entire parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Shepke.
Yes, consider, talking about the screening over on Sussex, that screens the Sussex area off, you talked about a 3-foot berm with, it talked about in a print a variety of shrubs on top of the berm to help screen the neighborhood from light and any other kind of pollution that might be coming from the commercial endeavor you've got going there at the assisted care facility. If say in the summertime, if there was a lot of foliage on some of that, some of the vegetation, it would maybe give some screening on, but in the wintertime, when the leaves fall off that foliage, it didn't say it was all evergreen or anything on there that'll block the light and some of the sound. I live along by I-75, and the only way you're going to block sound at all, if sound is a factor, is having something solid. But the shrubs on top of the 3-foot berm, I think is woefully inadequate. Even though I applaud you for adding another 10 feet there, I think that's good. I would like to see more, but I don't know how with the present layout how you could do it. But I would like to see some kind of a wall going along that side of the thing to shield us and screen this better, because I think the screening is very inadequate. There's a few areas in Troy that are absolutely beautiful areas, and the areas around here, some of the areas off Beach and that are beautiful residential neighborhoods. And I think the people that have put the kind of money that they put in their homes, and they deserve to have be protected a little bit better. So I don't like the idea of the facility going in there in an R1B neighborhood to start with, but the screening I think is terrible. Thank you.
May I ask Ben a question?
Yes, you may.
Ben, in my 11-plus years on the Planning Commission, I don't ever recall seeing a site plan come before us where the landscape plan is titled Conceptual Landscape Plan. Concepts change. Conceptual indicates that it is not locked in stone to me. And I have a real problem with the landscape plan. Is this facility going to be built to this landscape plan, or is this a concept and we're going to get something else when it's actually built?
The landscape plan submitted does meet all landscape ordinance requirements. It has been reviewed against that requirement, and if the plan tonight is approved, the landscape plan as submitted as part of the final site plan must be consistent with what's approved tonight by the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Ben, I have another question for you. Were you able to ascertain where the plantings are that are going to be on the berm? Are they at the crest or the peak of the berm? Are they in the sides of the berm? I was unable to tell that when I looked at the drawing, and I don't know if you maybe have looked at it a little bit longer, could shed some light on that.
It appears to me that due to the slope of the berm, most of the significant trees are starting on the downside of the berm going towards the building location itself. What that is off the grade, I haven't been able to determine from the landscape plan.
That's the petitioner. Same question.
If you take a close look, those trees are not in a perfectly straight line.
Understand.
And that's by design. So you may have some that are on the crest, some that might be slightly off the crest of the berm. The idea is to not have it be a continuous straight line so that you get better coverage. And to address a comment earlier about deciduous trees, I believe almost every plant along that berm are evergreens, either Douglas firs or Colorado spruces.
Okay, so what's the planned growth height for those trees?
We have some 8-foot pines, 8-foot spruce, 10-foot spruce. Yes.
That's not the growth height.
Yes, this is the planting size,
So
not
this
the
is-
growth height.
Okay, so this is when they go in, they'll be 8 and 10-foot trees?
8 and 10 foot, correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Planning Board. Edward Mancini. I'm the property owner and a partner in the development.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Stratt?
I noticed where you have your underground detention. It's over on the east side. That's the reason why you can't plant your trees on top of the berm. I'm assuming that your berm is actually covering over the detention.
That is correct.
So you're not worried about the actual root system interfering with it. There's nothing, we don't have any drawings, so we can't tell what the retention, but that's not our purview anyway. But I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, there's no concern with that. The design of that will be such that it will not impact.
Okay.
I'd just like to point out, the 3-foot berm with the evergreens is double what the ordinance calls for. My understanding is, you one or the other. We're doing both to help, make it a natural site for the residents and, make everybody here happy.
We understand, thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Well, if you've both signed in, please have a seat. As I had mentioned a minute ago, this is not a public hearing, but I am going to open it up to the public with a couple of caveats. We are going to have a 3-minute time limit, and so it will be time. So when you come up, the buzzer will start and it will go off, and ask you to respect that time frame. Secondly, I would like you to keep your remarks to the changes that have been made to the plans. Most of you were here, I believe, at our last meeting, and you voiced your concerns. So I would like you to focus on what's been presented here tonight as changes. And then I'd also like to say, again, this is a permitted use by right. The zoning ordinance does not, there's no variance required. These developers have the right to put this on this property. And so that, just going into it, that's what the zoning ordinance says. So if there's anyone here then that would like to come forward, I'll open the public hearing.
I have one question. Leonard Sedera. If in fact any of these 10-foot trees or other foliage die, which is reasonable that that could happen, will there be a requirement that they be replaced promptly?
Mr. Savinot, would you like to respond to that?
Yes. Yes, we treat landscaping like we do any other site improvements, such as dumpsters or parking striping or the building, et cetera. They're required to provide that landscaping, and if a plant dies or is diseased, they're required to replace it, and we will enforce.
Yes, Mr.
Just,
Schultz.
Brent, you want to bring up also, though, that the city is not going to go inspect on a regular basis to see if a tree has died. It would require that someone notify for enforcement. The city is not going to go out and inspect
That is correct.
twice or 3 times a year to see if a tree.
That is correct. Really, it's complaint-based, so, we would be relying on the residents to report dead or diseased trees.
Anyone else like to speak to this item? Please sign in.
Already did. Good evening, Terry Adams, 5970 Sussex. First of all, I totally support everybody else who is here tonight. I 100% would not like this facility approved. It's 130 feet from my front door. And without dwelling on what the other residents here tonight will be speaking on, regarding the foliage along Sussex, if I'm not mistaken, on the Sussex side, they offer to put a tree every 10 linear feet, where that on the south side, they're putting them every 3 linear feet. And with the front of our house facing the west, which would catch every headlight in the evening that is pulling in, I wondered if the board, I know Mr. Schultz and Mr. Sheppy brought this up, but in looking at the residents on Sussex, and there are 2 houses that are going to be straight across from the parking facility, that you either suggest that they put the trees along Sussex as close as possible, where that we do get the mandatory amount of blockage from the headlights that are coming in the parking spots in the evening. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Edmonds.
Mr. Chairman, I would really appreciate knowing when these people come up to speak, where they are located in relationship to this facility. I think that would be good information. Thank you.
Certainly, certainly.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Suzanne DeLisi, and my house is 3 houses south off Adams, south of Square Lake Road. There's been a lot of talk of the zoning ordinance tonight, and speaking of that, on page 27, under the senior housing, it says, quote, assisted living, a dependent elderly housing facility without cooking facilities and only central dining service. Limited medical care is available, end quote. The blueprints for the facility show 2 large areas labeled kitchen, and usually kitchens are used for cooking. On page 27, it says, quote, "Convalescent home, a medical establishment providing accommodation and care for aged or infirm persons or for those who are bedfast or needing considerable nursing care," end quote. Based on these definitions, limited medical care is permitted. However, considerable nursing care is not. The point here is that large medical establishments are not permitted in the R1A district, and I believe a memory care facility can and should be considered a medical establishment because people with diagnosed mental disorders and diseases have to see psychiatrists frequently, and psychiatrists are medical doctors. And given that half or more of the residents will be Alzheimer's patients, and this type of care is not allowed to happen on-site in the R1A district, these residents will need to be transported off-site regularly and frequently for specialized care. The traffic volume in this area will, without a doubt, increase exponentially if this facility is approved. There will also be many visits to the facility by large trucks to service the professional supplies needed for housekeeping, kitchen, nurse stations, trash pickup, etc. I'm under the impression that, quote, "concerns from a traffic engineering standpoint would be a reason to deny it," end quote. And that was said by Mark Miller last night at the Troy City Council meeting. Also, Mr. Mayor said that he would deny it if it were up to him, but that it is up to you, the Planning Commission. Also, on page 48 of the zoning ordinance text document, it says, quote, "The intent of R1A through R1E districts are further intended to preserve and improve upon the quality of residential neighborhoods," end quote. I think my neighbors and I have clearly demonstrated that the quality of our neighborhood would not be improved upon and in fact would deteriorate if the proposed facility is built. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Did you sign in, ma'am?
Yes, I signed it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Mills. I live at 5755 Sussex, which is down the street from the proposed development. I've got a question. Is it your intention to allow comment on the pipeline issue separately?
No, you can speak to that now.
Okay. Well, does that preclude me from speaking to the other issue
You have a
as well?
choice. You can decide.
I got my
what
3 minutes and
you have
that's
your
it.
3 minutes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Had a couple of questions. First of all, I couldn't tell from the lighting plan whether the poles for the lighting are going to be elevated poles or whether they're going to be low poles or low lighting. And if they're going to be high poles, was low lighting considered so that you don't have the light pollution around the neighborhood? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't want to use my time for you to find out. Secondly, a 3-foot berm, I'm not sure if that's enough. You've got vehicles that have, certainly on most passenger cars, that'll mask headlights. But you get these trucks or other vehicles that are on high tires, those are going to be higher than 3 feet. Those will shine right into Mr. Adams' front room, and that's inappropriate, I think. As for the pipeline, if I could speak to that for a minute. The pipeline, I believe you said that it's not on city property. I believe part of it is. It's city property subject to an easement that was sold to Sunoco so that they could build this monstrosity. And it is a monstrosity. And the attitude of the commission, from what I understand, is, well, they're going to need to submit a site plan, and then we'll see if their shrubbery and their screening is appropriate. If I built something like that, it would be torn down, and then I'd have to start over. I'd have to go through the right channels, and I'd have to submit my site plan approval, and it would either be approved or it wouldn't be approved. I don't know why that isn't being adopted here. The minutes that I saw said that, well, we'll take a look at the screening, and if it's screened properly, presumably it's going to stay. Sunoco builds all over the world. They know what they have to do, and they didn't do it, and you should hold their feet to the fire on it. As for the assisted living facility, I'm a lawyer. I know what the law says, but there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Under the letter of the law, you could build one of these facilities on every vacant lot in our subdivision as well as other subdivisions in Troy. That's not what Troy's about, and it shouldn't be what Troy's about. And the spirit of the law is that this doesn't belong in a residential subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Hi, my name is William Hogeworth, new resident to Troy, just moved into 2574 Chase Drive about 2 months ago. Had no idea that this facility was going to be anywhere near a residence I just spent a lot of money on to raise my family with a young 2-year-old son. My concern is one with the traffic, my concern is with light pollution, my concern is with noise pollution. Another concern that's just come to my mind, if this is going to be a medical facility, what kind of hazardous materials may be there? Chemicals, pressurized tanks, the such. It concerns me greatly because from where I moved from, Royal Oak, my last home was 1 block from where a man died from a home blowing up. I'm sure you all read about in the paper. So what are we exposing our neighborhood to with this facility? If we don't know, can we please delay, investigate? I don't know myself, maybe you do, but if there are hazardous materials, pressurized tanks, has this been looked into? So I please hope that you will, at the minimum, delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you sign in, sir?
I have.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Roger Howard, 5726 Sussex Court. It's around the corner from this. It seems there was a lot of confusion. We didn't know about the Sunoco pipeline. I have to ask, what don't we know about this? What kind of medical care is being given there? I heard in the previous meeting about lack of licensing. Assisted living, if that's what we're going to call this, is licensed by the state. It doesn't have to be. Do we want that kind of facility in Troy? Last night at the City Council meeting, we talked a lot about the crime and the property damage because of a hookah bar that was allowed to go in. Just because the law allows something, as John Mills says, doesn't meet the spirit of it. So I have a great question about what kind of facility this is. I would look out in the audience. These are the residents of this neighborhood. They're not the developer, who is not a resident of Troy, as far as I know. They're not the petitioner. These are the people that are right there within a couple hundred feet of this facility that is not a single-family resident building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Bell. I live at 3727 Ledge Drive, which is not in the neighborhood at this proposed facility. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I'm coming tonight on a broad opinion that it is a good idea to provide assisted living facilities in our state and in our community. A lot of us have older family members that are going to need this care, and we're going to need it ourselves in the future. So assisted living facilities are a fine idea. I am now speaking on some personal experience. My own mother just finished living at the Sunrise of Troy, which is on the other corner of Troy. She lived there for 4 years, and I got to know that facility very well. I hope to address a few concerns that I've just heard in the last couple of minutes. Basically, assisted living facilities are very quiet places. People who live in an assisted living facility, they need assistance. They don't drive. There's not a lot of traffic from the residents. The traffic comes from family members and friends coming to visit. The activity at assisted living residents that I know pretty much quiets down by 7 o'clock in the evening. Most of the people who have visited during the day have left. It's very quiet. As far as traffic from delivery trucks, the delivery trucks do not deliver during the nighttime when any kind of tall headlights would be a concern going over the berm and the shrubbery. Ambulance service in an assisted living facility is usually very quiet too. If people need to leave, it's because of not in a medical emergency, so ambulance sirens are not needed. Yes, people do leave the facility to go to hospitals, emergency rooms, but it's a non-emergent ambulance service, so they just drive in and they pull up and the residents leaves in just a very quiet, no sirened ambulance. Dumpster noise at the back of Sunrise and Troy is a non-issue. There was a brick wall around it. It just wasn't noisy. There was a neighborhood behind the Sunrise of Troy, and they also had berms with tall evergreens, and I never saw the neighborhood behind it, and I'm not sure how much they saw it too. So I think that addresses most of the concerns that I had and some of the things that I heard tonight. I just want to be a voice of reassurance for the residents in this neighborhood that it might be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you address your comments to the commission, not to anyone in the audience.
Good evening. My name is Keith Ulrich. I'm at 2587 Haverford Drive. I'm about a block away from the corner. I've lived there for
down Adams or down?
I'm on Haverford, just to the east of the corner.
Okay.
I've lived there for 18 years. And I kind of get the impression that this is like a train has left the station discussion. I appreciate Mr. Shepke's comments. I also want to second John Mills' comments about the spirit of the law. We in this building are going to drive past this corner 1,000 times in a year. And I would ask any of you gentlemen, are you going to drive past this corner 1,000 times in a given year? It's going to, I mean, right now the corner is populated by deer and fox, and it's quiet, and especially the people in Sussex, I think, are really getting hammered here. So I would just ask your consideration that this, as far as the spirit of the law, is not the right thing for the city of Troy. As far as the pipeline, I guess I'd like to ask you gentlemen, where is there another above-line pipeline in the city of Troy like this one right now? It is a monstrosity. The fact that it's gotten this far without a lot of education of the residents is really just a travesty. And what's going to happen to it long term? I mean, beyond the eco situation, just the way it looks right now. I mean, as I left there tonight, there are trucks out there with lights on. There are gigantic mud piles, piles of dirt. And we're driving past it every day, not even thinking about what the future impact is going to be. So I guess I would just ask your consideration that the right thing has to be done to the Sunoco situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Robert Goslin, 5773 Sussex. I'm about a block down from this project. When I was on the city council, 93 to 97, we had a master plan, and we would have never allowed something like this to happen. So I don't know how it creeped in to the ordinance. But I think what has to happen here is the city council and your board here should address the issue quickly, because this can be done on certain properties all over Troy. And the zoning here says single family. 92 beds is not a single family. Okay, so it kind of contradicts itself. As far as the green belt, okay, last I saw was 30 feet. If you move the building to the west another 10 feet, would we have the 40-foot green belt, I guess is a question I have. And I understand there's a detention area with 3 48-inch diameter under the ground detention that detains the water from the parking lot and runoff from the roof drains and so forth. I think that's interesting in itself, but it's permitted to detain the water. But if we go 40 feet, and Mr. Shepke suggested to go with a 4, maybe 5, 6 foot wall, put it close to the parking lot and put all the growth, the trees, just off center, of course, from the detention area. I'm just kind of surprised. I was kind of shocked, as I mentioned before, and I really think it's your places to protect the neighborhoods. It's the city council's place to protect the neighborhoods. You're appointed, they're elected, and of course I'm against this project. I'll go on record for that. But another point is, if you don't take care of it right away and get on board, one of you should make a motion, another should second it, to get the conversation started to change the ordinance right now. Because let's say the property to the south of this, I heard there was some talk about it, an expanding of this unit. So I would get on this project right away, change the ordinance, and start tonight by putting it on your agenda for next meeting to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Smith, and I live at 2847 Arland Way, just about 250 feet from this location. I also wanted to bring your attention to some of my concerns. You've heard it all before, but I just want to reiterate. My husband and I moved to Troy to have a family. Pardon me. This is not something I want my kids growing up next to. I don't like driving by it. This pipeline is an eyesore. Don't get me wrong, these facilities are needed. They're doing good things. The problem is, where does a place like this belong? And we just talked in the city council meeting last night about all of these open locations in Troy. You want to make developments, you want to build new buildings, you want to redesign buildings that are already there. So if all of these locations are available, why is this location so ideal? And it is a beautiful area, and the homes and the community there is a nice one, and it does bring people to Troy. It is the reason I moved to Troy. Today, I feel like I want to move out of Troy because I'm being forced into a situation that I have no control over, I have no say. The council sits here and tells me that this is the letter of the law, and understandably so, but I too have rights, and I need to be heard, and I need my voice to be spoken through you. So I appeal to you to think about your home, your family, even if you don't have a young family. When you first moved with your husband or wife, when you decided you wanted to be in a great area that is full of potential and growth, where would you want to live? Because I think for me personally, if this facility were already there, this house, 2 houses away from this location, is definitely not something I would have even considered. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Bob Tortolot. Let's see, 2 lots down from the corner on Adams, 5900. We've been here 2 years, love it. We're considering moving. You know, I hate to do it. We can do it now. Maybe we can beat our way out of there before we lost too much on the deal. We can talk about berms and retaining walls and garbage dumpsters, but it's pretty much just perfume on a pig, excuse me. So if you find your way to do the right thing, do it. If not, you know, it is what it is.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Mills. I live at 5755 Sussex. I'm about a block from the proposed facility. I would suggest we need to be aware of wolves in sheep's clothing. In the site plan application, the developer states that this will be a 92-bed assisted living / memory care facility. At the last Planning Commission meeting, we were advised that half of the facility would be for memory care residents, and they'd be located on the 2nd floor. Nowhere in the zoning ordinance is there mention of a memory care facility. The ordinance only defines assisted living facility. Several of my neighbors have loved ones in memory care facilities which are different from assisted living. To protect them from wandering and leaving the premise, these residents are in a lockdown area. They have an area, they have their own kitchen, laundry, nurses, supplies, and often many of them are in wheelchairs or confined to beds. Memory care patients require 24-hour continual care, which is not senior-assisted or independent living. By the way, rehabilitative services will occur at this proposed facility. You realize people who are on Medicare have services paid for through Medicare, and if you look up Medicare, Medicare covers home health care. Home health care includes physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language therapy. My mom was in this wonderful Sunrise Assisted Living, and I can tell you, my mom had someone come because she qualified for home health care to provide physical therapy and occupational therapy. And I can tell you that the assisted living facility was different from the memory care facility. On the site plan application, the developer says 92-bed living/memory care facility. This zoning ordinance defines part of it, but there's no explanation of memory facility. How can you pass something when it's not defined in our ordinance? Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'll sign in after my talk. My name is Jim Wally. I live at 2576 Haverford, which is kitty corner from him. I've been in Troy for about 30 years. I guess I'm in between. The owner of the property needs to develop it. That's fair. But they bought it with knowing what the zoning ordinance is. So they shouldn't push the envelope. I agree with what Ms. Mills said, and I was joking with her husband, she should have gone to law school. Common sense. Put yourselves in the shoes of the residents. I believe, I haven't studied this, but my mother also was in Sunrise. She was also in Altera. So Troy already has 2 elder care facilities, maybe more. I just know from personal experience. She was in memory care. I was there for 3 years, virtually 4 or 5 times a week, and I saw what goes on there, and it is a quasi-medical facility. So look at your definition. As to the Sunoco pipes, I didn't know what they were going on. I was asleep, not watching what was going on. Shame on me. But I drove by a facility that's a little bit more developed. I don't know if Sunoco owns it or not. It's at Inkster Road, just north of 11 Mile. They have a fence around it, and they've got little trees, about 5 of them, I think. That should not be in a residential area. I understand that, I'm guessing, I'm cynical, that Troy needs money. They want property taxes. Great. But there should be places for these to be. Why does it have to be in a residential area? Thank you very much, and I'll sign in.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Sir, keep it brief, because this is your third time up, so please keep it brief. The idea wasn't to let every resident have 2 and 3 shots at the plate here, but...
I was interrupted and told to go to the back of the line.
Not the second time, sir. But please, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to address the Sunoco pump station issue. And before I begin, I would like to have a show of hands of everyone on the commission who has actually seen it in recent time.
What's recent, sir?
Well, in the past couple of weeks. Okay, so you've all seen it. Second of all, how many have you seen the right-of-way permit that was submitted undated to the city by Sunoco, which was approved on July 31st by the city, which accepted a payment of $1,260. And I note on the front page of the application that the city engineer said no pre-construction meeting was necessary. How many have seen this document? The record should reflect that none of you have raised your hands. That's the segue to my presentation and my questions that I have before your body today. Pursuant to a FOIA request that I initiated on November 19th, I was furnished copies of correspondence between the city and Sunoco, and also among the city planners and city officials. These documents began on September 24th and finished around November 18th of what I was given. They amounted to about 167 pages of documents between the parties, Sunoco and the city. These documents gave me some understanding, a limited understanding of what happened and why it happened, and caused me great concern to ask some very specific questions. And tonight I would like to share with some of you what I found as a concerned citizen and share that with the citizens behind me. It's pretty clear that Sunoco deceived the city and the nearby residents. So please hear me out. Sunoco submitted the undated, vague application, which none of you have seen, which gave it, as it perceived it, the right to do what they did. And that application, which was not a construction permit,
Sir, which, I'm sorry, your time is up.
My time is up?
Yes, sir.
3 minutes.
Really? Really?
We treated everyone the same tonight. I had announced there was going to be a 3-minute time limit on everybody's presentation.
Sir, let me just say that 3 minutes is not enough for a situation where a commercial operation without any construction approval, without anything, has built looks like a small refinery in a residential district.
Sir, let me say something to you.
Please do.
Why don't you call the planning department, set up a meeting? If the city attorney needs to be there, they can arrange for that to happen. This board did not have any purview or any review of that pipeline, nor should we have. So if you would like to set up a time, call Mr. Savedant, and you can discuss your concerns and ask your questions at that time.
Question. If this board didn't, why was there some 167 pages of documents exchanged between the citizens, between the city and Sunoco?
Sir, I don't know why what the city documents are.
Who had jurisdiction?
Sir, I'm going to have to cut this off. If you'd like to continue this discussion, please call the planning department.
That would be
Mr. Savedant, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I will do it. Then perhaps we can come back. Or are you saying that we have no opportunity to come back?
I mean, there are always opportunities for items that are not on the agenda if you want to come back and speak.
Let me ask you this. What does it take to get on the agenda?
Talk to Mr. Savedant.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Savedant.
Could I take a few moments, very, very briefly, just to give an update to the people in the audience on the pipeline? I think it's a good opportunity to have, and this isn't, I'm not trying to engage in a conversation here. I'm going to present this, and if anyone has follow-up questions, contact me via email or phone or set up a meeting. So, sir, you're absolutely correct. We were deceived. We agree. Sunoco contacted the engineering department and asked for, basically pulled a permit to do some maintenance on the pipeline. This pipeline stretches from Michigan all the way into, way deep into Pennsylvania. And then lo and behold, I'm sure some of you went to work one day, there was nothing there, came back that same night, and there's apparatus on the site. It looks unsightly. I agree with you. Ugly. This type of improvement is reviewed and approved. It requires site plan approval, but it's administrative. It does not go before Planning Commission, so it's beyond their purview. They haven't seen the right-of-way permit. I haven't seen the right-of-way permit, okay? We were deceived. But we're trying to move forward and come up with a solution that's going to work for the neighbors and work for everybody concerned, okay? So we requested a site plan, and we received a site plan. We circulated the site plan interdepartmentally for review. Some of the residents actually were involved in reviewing it and providing comments to it. It's up on the screen here. What they propose to do is fence the facility with 6-foot-high chain link fence that's black vinyl coated. So as far as chain link goes, it's going to be durable and it's going to be about as aesthetically pleasing as you can get for a chain link fence. It's also going to be fully screened from the right-of-way. The fence is going to be 6 feet high. They wanted 8 feet high, an 8-foot fence with 6-foot plantings. We held them to 6-foot plantings at time of planting, and a 6-foot fence. So it's screened. There will be a gate. The gate is going to be opaque. It's going to be provided with composite. It's going to be slats. You can't see through it. So the only point that you're going to be able to see from Arland Way is going to be a gate that you can't see in. It's going to be 6 foot high. There's a landscape plan. We also, so this is the landscape plan. It's consistent with what the plantings that are proposed for the senior facility. There's also some plantings in the right-of-way that are going to also help further shield this from public view. It's going to look a lot better. Is it unsightly now? Absolutely. It's terrible. I wouldn't want to look at it either. But they're going to be required to improve it. They should have done that at the beginning. They should have engaged the public. They didn't. Now we're left with picking up the pieces. I'm not happy about it. I'm willing to share this document with everybody. It's also got cut sheets of and information, detailed drawings of the improvements that are there, the fence, everything that's there, the species of plants, the height, et cetera. 3 pages. I'm willing to. I can email it to you. I can make hard copies for you, whatever it takes. Okay. We want to be transparent and make this information available to you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to item number 8?
My name is Charles Gabor. I live at 2825 Lenox. I'd like everybody to take a look at the property that's up there. If you take a look at the proposed property site, and just below it, take a look at the 2 pieces that go from Adams to Sussex. Mrs. Beer lives on that property. She's in her late 80s, and she's not doing very well. I want to know how we're going to stop the continuation of this project if it goes down. And then what happens if it goes to the next house and to the next house? These properties are pretty big. So how do we guarantee that we don't have traffic problems and continuation of this problem? You guys have to get together with the city council and stop this. Please, I urge you to do something.
Thank you. Did you sign in, sir?
I did not, I'm sorry.
Anyone else? Barb? Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this item?
It's a compressor.
I'm Lenore Paxton, and I live at 5900 Sussex. This is about 3 houses down from the corner of Arland and Sussex. And the point that I would like to bring up, this gentleman here agreed that the city of Troy was deceived by the Sun Oil Company. When I contacted, as I mentioned at the last meeting, when I contacted the city of Troy 6 or so weeks ago to find out or do whatever about this Sun project, I was told, as you may remember, that the city had no responsibility to let the residents know. I said, well, why weren't we informed? You let us know about everything else. There's no law that says that we have to do that. Now, I'm going to go to the date of the zoning ordinance, which I understand this assisted living situation was stuck into the subdivision zoning a bit. In 2011, that was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Now I submit to all of you and all of the Troy City government that we residents have been deceived. I was not aware of any change in the zoning ordinance. I don't know how many people here were. I certainly was not informed of it, and as we were told that we ought to be involved and come and give our opinions as to what's going to happen. And everyone is so afraid that the city is going to be sued now because this was adopted by some unknown entity back in 2011, 2 years ago, and I don't believe that very many of our residents of Middlesex were aware of this. Therefore, I consider this a deception by the City of Troy. Now, if the City of Troy and the Planning Commission are sort of stuck now because they're going to be held to the letter of the law, I say you made a very large error in not informing the most important people in this whole. Yes, the applicant needs to be treated fairly, but what the heck about the residents? And I'm going to go back to 2011 when this was slipped into our shall we say, our experience, and now we are having to pay the price for this. So whether or not the City of Troy is facing a lawsuit, well, you might just have to fight along those lines, because indeed the residents were deceived, and we all feel deceived by this. As I was told by the Planning Commission, there's no law. Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the table for discussion. Mr. Shepke.
Yes, Brent, I'd like to ask you a question. Does it say in the zoning ordinance that memory care usage is allowed in R1B? Does it say that?
It's not specifically addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Yes, Mr. Krantz.
Yeah, there's a couple comments I wanted to respond to from the residents. This was from Suzanne DeLessie. She indicated a quote from Mark Miller regarding the engineering studies and traffic. I listened to that meeting last night, and what Mark was referring to, what was brought up, was that we would have trucks going through residential neighborhoods on residential streets. What he was saying is we could enforce traffic to not allow that to happen. I just wanted to clarify that. This is on a main road, Square Lake. It is a road that large trucks are allowed on a regular basis. So that's what Mark was referring to, I'm sure. The second item, I wanted to refer to Mr. Robert Goslin. He said to have this immediately reviewed by the City Council. And, you know, that's what, if you listen carefully to last night's meeting, Mr. Goslin, I think Mayor Dane Slater immediately said we've got to take action on this, and quite a few nodding of heads from the other members. So I think that's going to be addressed rather rapidly. My real concern of this project is the traffic flow, pedestrian traffic flow within the site. We really, our purview is within the site itself. It's not extraneous to the site so much. And my concern is this. We've got a front entrance that faces Square Lake Road. There are 4 handicap parking places near that front entrance, but the vast majority of those parking spaces are quite a distance away from that front entrance. I realize people can be dropped off at the front, and that person driving can, you know, find a spot and walk back. My real concern is this. Usually, and because I've had a few family members in different assisted living homes, is that what happens is an elderly person or couple are driving to this to visit a sister or brother, and these people, especially when it's dark out, we do have, during the winter time, and their eyesight is not necessarily the best. The point is they have a long way to walk to get back to that check-in point at the front desk. I realize there's a side entrance. It was explained at prior meetings that the side entrance on the east side will have a coded button access, and I realize people won't remember their code, but they did say that that person could buzz, and then a person from the reception desk, which is located in the middle of the building, can look at that person through a camera and then buzz that person in. Of course, then that person has to walk this full length, virtually half the length of the building to get to the reception desk to sign in. I think the layout is poor. Putting so much of the parking away from the main entrance, I think this the building configuration could be redesigned, have a better configuration for bringing in guests and checking them in. I think this is kind of the building was designed not necessarily to fit this site. It looks like a standard layout for this type of facility, putting the reception area in the middle and having wings go out to the side. But realistically, the majority of people parking are going to be at the east end of this building and not near the front entrance. I just think this, as a building site, it should be reconfigured to better serve the people visiting the people at the facility.
That's it. Thank you. Mr. Edmonds.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Savenant, when was this Middlesex subdivision platted?
Oh.
Approximately, I don't.
I want to say the 60s, but I'm sure someone in the audience would correct me.
I think it was 52.
I was right.
And a follow-up question that's rather obvious. Have we ever had any other people or any developers come forward to apply to develop this piece of property?
Yes, we have, but only as an assisted living facility. We had one other one, if memory serves me correctly.
One of the points I'd like to make is that this piece of ground is on two heavily trafficked streets, Adams and Square Lake. I think if it was amenable to a developer to develop this as single-family homes, it would have been done a long time ago, and even now with all the resurgence in residential development. So I would submit that that's one of the reasons, or probably the primary reason, that this is not being developed as a single-family residential development. Thank you.
Mr. Stratt.
I have, what I've heard is that there was a developer that came in to make this into condominiums. Yes. And I think that it was rejected, the rezoning on it. But someone did approach, I think, to condominiums.
Rejected why?
I have no idea. I was not a planning commission.
Because it had to be rezoned to a different class.
They couldn't rezone it. I don't know what it was, but I know that I guess there were quite a few residents that were opposed to that as well, from what I heard. So I don't know, but I just thought I'd give an insight to that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The application for condominium.
Sir, you cannot just butt into the conversation. Please, you've had your chance at the microphone.
This is on this issue.
This is a
Sir, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We understand democracy.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes, you know, this thing I've thought long and hard, and I've gone out there several times. I love the city of Troy. I've been coming out here since I was a boy in the early 40s. And before it was even the city of Troy, it used to be the Big Beaver. I used to take the Big Beaver bus from Ferndale, you know, the old orange and white. And anyway, I've lived here 43 years. And I've worked in construction a lot of times, and codes are minimum, and setbacks to me should be minimum setbacks. If there's a law, a zoning ordinance, or a process that ties the hands of city government so that there are no exceptions can be made, absolutely none, without legal action, I think it's a bad law. And it shouldn't be on the books, or it should be repealed. You have to have exceptions. You can't have a rule without an exception. And I think if I've never seen a case that needs an exception like this one here, because I just, from riding around the neighborhood, I love the neighborhood there. I love the neighborhoods over on off Beach Road and stuff like that. Troy's got some beautiful, beautiful areas. And when something like this moves in, to me, it's wrong. And when a memory care unit isn't specifically, assisted living is in the code, but memory care is not, I cannot support this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I have to concur with Tom mentioned earlier as far as the configuration of the site. I think that it was a standard building that actually was just plucked onto the site without any rhyme or reason. I'm concerned about the safety aspects of it. I agree with the comments that were made as far as this is a beautiful neighborhood. In my opinion, it's my opinion, I think that the Red Roof End is better looking than this. I think it's horrible. I don't think, I think it's really degrading the neighborhood, and I am not going to be voting for it because of the safety aspects. I think that, again, as was pointed out, the residents in there, they'll have to walk all the way around to the front entry. I think it's a bad design and really not safe.
Did you have something to say, sir?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I'd like to address some of the comments that were made this evening. First off, the site is at the hard corner of Square Lake and Adams. Its longest dimension is along Square Lake Road, and it's a couple hundred feet away from the interchange at I-75. I understand that it backs up to residential. However, this type of use is very commonly used as a buffer between commercial and residential. The building will serve seniors. There are seniors in this immediate area who've lived there for years, who don't want to leave the area. There are people who live in this area whose parents will require this type of care. And having a facility like this close to home makes all the difference in the world when somebody's growing old. The comments of noise, ambulance, trucks, it is very, very important that this building does not have a lot of noise, that deliveries are not made early in the morning or late at night. We specifically stack it that way because this building needs to be quiet just as much as the neighborhood around it needs to be quiet. We've taken the building and shifted it 10 feet to the west based on comments from the last meeting. I did not think that we'd be able to get it 10 feet to the west, but we did, to move it away from Sussex. We've added a canopy to the east entry for visitors who come regularly, who generally have a code that's their birthday or their anniversary date or whatever, and they can access the building. The screening in the vegetation along the east property line, the ordinance requires either a berm or vegetation, and we've done both. The trees that are called out are evergreens. They are not deciduous that drop their leaves, and they're all of 8 and 10 foot in height at the time of planting. I want to address the issue of memory care. Sunrise, which is a commonly known community in southeast Michigan, has memory care. There are independent/assisted living facilities that offer memory care. It's all within the license of a home for the aged, which is an assisted living facility. As far as the design is in neighborhoods. So each floor is divided in two. There's an east neighborhood and a west neighborhood. Those neighborhoods are pods, which are basically rooms around the perimeter, and then a central area for dining, activities, a fireplace, bookshelves, a library. So the building is broken up into 4 different pods. This is not something that was designed this is a rectangular design. The shape of the property is the same configuration. However, the interior of the building is designed for new design standards for the industry. I'd like to finish by saying that we have worked closely with planning staff. We meet all of the ordinance requirements, and we hope that this evening we could get an approval, and if not, a denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds?
Just one question for the developer.
Sir?
Is your facility, will it be licensed by the state of Michigan?
It is designed to be a licensed facility, and we intend for it to be a licensed facility.
Before it opens?
It has to be licensed before we open.
Thank you.
I have a question. In the specifications here, it says the applicant proposes to screen 21 parking spaces adjacent to Sussex Road with a 3-foot berm with a mix, not evergreens, with a mix of shrubs and trees located on the top of the berm. And you just stated a few minutes ago that they won't be dropping their leaves. Well, if it's a mix of shrubs, I think you'll be dropping some leaves somewhere.
The shrubbery is used junipers, which will hold their needles.
It should state that then.
Evergreen.
Well, the drawing is one thing, but I'm going by writing. The landscape drawings are not very specific as far as I'm concerned, like was pointed out earlier. But I'm just going by what's in black and white here. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Conceptual.
Mr. Motzner, you have a question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There's been some discussion about the memory care and the assisted care. This gentleman just said that memory care is part of a license that's allowable under the assisted care umbrella, if I understood him correctly.
Well, I think the confusion is, I don't believe the state actually defines assisted living. There is a license for homes for the aged. I think that's what the applicant mentioned. And it's my understanding that is under that umbrella.
Okay. So if our ordinance refers back to that language, then I would assume that because state law defines that type of facility to include those other things that aren't necessarily delineated in our ordinance would be included.
Well, our ordinance doesn't refer to aged, homes for the aged, and it doesn't refer to memory care. That's correct. But our planning consultant, who we rely on, is one of the most respectable planning consultants in the state, has defined this to meet the definition of assisted living as defined under our ordinance. And that's what this board should rely on in making their determination.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what the city attorney has addressed. We did, based on review of the application as well as discussions with the applicant as well as the attorney's office, to determine that this falls under the classification of assisted living. If the Planning Commission wishes to deny the application on grounds of Site layout, safety, et cetera, it's under the purview of the Planning Commission's jurisdiction. However, the question about whether or not this meets the ordinance for memory care versus assisted living, that's not really a reason to deny the application tonight. In regards to the issue of, because we're having memory care and additional staff and employees will be there to service the building, the applicants indicated that at maximum shift, there's 30 employees at one time. The parking configuration is to accommodate those 30 persons. So we do count that any additional staff as part of memory care will have to be parked within those 30 spaces as required under the ordinance.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Sanzica.
I'm just curious about the Sunoco site. Why is there a generator there? I believe it's a generator or a compressor. I drive by there twice a day, and I'm not. It's just. Is that for electrical service, or why is that there? Do you have any idea?
Here's what I can tell you. The pipeline is for crude oil. That exhausts my technical knowledge of the pipeline. I wish I knew more. It's really a question for the engineering department. I can get back to you on that. You talk about technical issues that I have no understanding of.
All right. If it's for electrical service, I'm sure that at some point they'll have a buried electrical service for the facility. And I can't imagine a generator sitting there like that. So it's got to be for electrical service.
That would be my guess. Is it's temporarily there to help with the, facilitating the construction and the early maintenance of the facility, but it's going to go away. But in terms of why it's there, I don't know.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Mr. Edmonds.
Just one other question for Mr. Sabato. What are the permitted uses other than single-family homes here?
In the R1A through R1E?
R1A.
All right, there's basically going to be two types of uses I refer to: permitted by right and permitted by special use approval. If it's by special use approval, it needs to go through the special use approval process, which involves public hearing by Planning Commission, as well as additional standards. So,
I understand.
Okay? What's for the information for the audience members?
But to be clear, this one is by right.
This one is by right.
Thank you.
So I'll list a few by right. One-family dwellings, including home occupations, senior assisted and independent living facilities. By special use, bed and breakfast. Publicly owned operated parks, parkways, and recreational facilities by right. Golf courses, swimming pool clubs, primary, secondary schools, and places of worship, and publicly owned operated service and service facilities, special use. Family daycare homes by right. Daycare centers, preschools, special use. Adult foster care family homes by right. Adult foster care small and large group homes, special use. Adult foster care congregate facilities, special use. Adult daycare homes, special use. Adult daycare center, special use. Do you want me to go on, or does that give you a flavor for?
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, gentlemen, there's no further discussion.
Just one last point. I just wanted to thank the developer for all the work they put into this project. Modifying the berm on Sussex, moving their building, bringing in lighting, although I'm not quite sold that, I looked at the lighting fixture, I'm not quite sold that that's going to really shield from glare from across the street, but maybe the trees that block it. I think they've done a really good job with the berm and separation from the neighborhood, but what they haven't done to me is inside the site itself. And because I think, well, I feel that there could be a better arrangement for on-site pedestrian traffic, their check-in system. In a nutshell, I don't think it's as safe a site as it could be. I think it could be a much safer design from people getting from the parking lot to the check-in area. So as I see the site right now, I would vote against it. I would like to see a better plan brought back in for the parking and pedestrian access to the main entrance.
Thank you. We're ready to entertain a motion.
Mr. Tager. Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain.
Hang on just a second.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Hudson.
I was going to move a resolution, but if Mr. Zanziga was,
Well, I will, and I think just for the reason to see where we are in the Planning Commission, I'd like to resolve that preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Oakland-Troy senior project located in the southeast corner of Square Lake and Adams, Section 20 within R1A, one family residential district be approved, subject to that they implement all requirements outlined in the traffic consultant's report as per city engineer prior to the final site plan approval.
I will support that, and I believe I should support it because I have some friends and acquaintances out in the audience who are lawyers. And we lawyers know that if a law is in existence and the person meets all the requirements as set forth in that law, it will be enforced. The spirit of the law is a nice statement and a flavoring, but it's no exception to the law. These people have demonstrated they have met every requirement under our ordinance and our code and gone beyond it. I've heard no factual findings or determinations that there's a safety problem with this site, and for that reason, I second the resolution, and I intend to vote for it.
Thank you. Kathy, are you doing the roll? Brent?
Mr. Krent?
No.
Mr. Sanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
No.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
No.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Kempen?
Yes.
6 affirmatives and 3 negatives.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, the next item is for public comment for items on the agenda. I think we've, unless there's something we've missed, I think we've probably beat that one. Yes, ma'am.
I think it was clearly stated that Mr. Savanen said that memory, I know it's, you've already approved it, but he said that memory is not covered in there, so I don't know how Mr. Carlisle can say it is when it's clearly not in the zoning ordinance. So I know you were worried that you would get sued if you didn't approve it. I think you've opened a can of worms now that you can get sued that you did approve it because it's not in the zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Carlisle, do you have any, I mean, can you tell us, give us a little bit of background as to your findings?
In discussing the application with the applicant as well as, again, working with the city attorney's office, the uses that are proposed for the site follow the classification of assisted living. Assisted living qualifies many types of somewhat similar facilities, and memory care is one of those types of uses. And in fact, most assisted living facilities is now commonplace in the industry to have both assisted living with memory care, and that's the universal standard.
You're right. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Gail Boyle. I live at 5848 Andover. I lived in this community for 43 years. And this might seem anecdotal. The appearance of this pipeline didn't concern me. I mean, as much as when I read in the paper just about a week ago in Chicago, in Texas, a pipeline the same as this, there was a rupture and like over 700 families had to be evacuated. And I got to thinking, I'm in the medical field, and this could happen, and I'm just here to say to you, the pipeline, I have a really, and being above ground, which I understood even the, some of the people in our community or in office here didn't realize that it had been put above ground. I think it could be attacked. I mean, I'd like to know what Homeland Security thinks of something like this. That's just been available. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Certainly. Anyone else? All right. Item number 10, Planning Commissioner comments. I'm sorry, Mr. Silent.
I'll wait for the comment. I want to, don't leave until you hear my comment. Okay?
Alan, we'll start with you.
I guess I'd also comment, there is a Federal Pipeline Safety Act, and local municipalities actually are preempted in many respects as far as the safety aspects of pipeline, but there are federal regulations that the federal government can enforce if there's any safety issues with the pipeline.
Thank you.
My understanding is that these valves have been put in place all along the pipeline, as I mentioned, from Michigan to Pennsylvania, and that they're actually being implemented to improve safety so that when there are ruptures, they're able to shut down sections of the line to reduce the impact of the rupture.
Thank you.
That's all I know.
Anything else, Mr. Sabanen?
Nope.
No. Mr. Hudson?
It's my observation that pipeline has been there for many, many, many years, and that Troy probably got built around it.
Mr. Krent?
The only comment I wanted to make was on the development along Big Beaver. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Schultz said about the new development at Big Beaver and Alpine by the AT&T store specifically has no front access. We're 10 feet from the sidewalk, but we have no front access to that store as planned. You can only enter that store from the back parking lot. And I think we have to look at that, how we do our form-based design for Big Beaver Corridor as far as those new developments to ensure that there is access from the sidewalk to that business.
Did you have a comment, Mr.
I just have one comment. Mr. Kern, we wholeheartedly agree with that comment. We are looking at addressing that issue with both the developer as well as AT&T. I will remind the commission that that development does not fall under the form-based code. It was actually done through a PUD, so some of the form-based code standards were used as guidelines for this development. That being said, the approved elevations and floor plans did show a workable, accessible door. So that's something that we will be addressing forthcoming.
Thank you.
Mr. Kempen?
I have a few comments. I approved that last motion, and a couple of things I didn't feel comfortable with on that, though, were the fact that our code allows one resident per 1,500 square feet in the property, and we're discussing on the sober living facilities requiring 4,000 square feet. I think that those inconsistencies are pretty substantial, and we probably need to look at maybe modifying the ordinance to be more consistent across the use. It did seem like this is a squished development. A lot of people in a small space, not a lot of exercise space for those that could get exercise outside. Let's see, there was one other issue as well. You ran through the list of special use requirements, and it seems like there's some other uses that are compatible or similar in nature but require special use. Maybe we should look at that as well, as far as making sure that this doesn't land right in the middle. Like they had said earlier, it doesn't land right in the middle of a subdivision, some big Goliath development that surprises the neighbors. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Stratt?
I have two items I wanted to discuss. One was the signage that was brought up before. I hope that we actually get going on that pretty quickly. As I mentioned before, I think it's horrendous to see that big billboard on Big Beaver with the Kelly Services building. I think that's horrible. The second thing I wanted to mention is that on the form-based code, the 7-Eleven that we approved just recently on Coolidge, Crooks and Waddles. And we insisted that there be a certain percentage of glass area, the area for the entrance. They totally covered up the glass area from the inside. I mean, what we're doing is we're playing games. And I don't care how we can't legislate every possible condition. There's going to be ways of getting around it. We have to really express what the intent of the zoning ordinance is. And that bothers me. I think where really, I don't know what the answer is, but I just wanted to point out that there are problems with that. That's it.
Mr. Schultz?
I appreciated the joint meeting with City Council. And as one of the senior, if not the senior member of this organization, I think I'm a couple months ahead of Tom.
Yeah.
I welcome City Council's visions, input, and opinions on any and all topics that fall within the Planning Commission's purview. That being said, state law is quite clear on the roles of City Council and the roles of planning commissions, and they are autonomous bodies for a reason. And therefore, I'm sure it was a misspeak, but City Council, I don't think, has the authority to tell us what they expect. We are an autonomous body. They can give us their opinions and views, and we send things to them for approval. So I hope it doesn't become a situation where we are told what City Council expects.
Thank you. Mr. Shepke.
Yes, I think we have, the city of Troy has a lot of challenges right now. I think the signage issue, especially with the digital signs, that's a real, they can be such an eyesore. We want a very desirable, walkable community, and I think that that's, and I agree with Tom Krent about the doors on the sidewalks. That's on the front of the buildings. That's, you know, that's something that I missed on the print, and I think that we have a long way to go, but we've come a long way, and I'm grateful that some of the applicants and developers that have come into the city can see the same vision that I can see long term. It's a wonderful place to grow up and raise a family, and it served me well in the past, and I'm looking forward to some wonderful things happening in the city, and so I guess that's it. But the signage issue is, we've been dragging our feet on it for a while. This is something that we need to address, and if we're truly wanting to make this community more desirable, and that's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds?
No comment.
Mr. Sanzika?
No comment.
Mr. Kyle, anything?
No comment.
Frank? All right. Thank you all for coming and sharing your thoughts. The meeting's closed.